Hi, guys. This episode contains brief descriptions of domestic violence and abuse. If you or someone you know is at risk, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at thehotline.org. Stay strong. Hello, and welcome to the Ultra Running Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Scotty Sando. Losing 200 pounds is no easy feat, and neither is finishing the Moab 240. Arizona resident Callie Vinson can now claim both of those titles as her epic journey unfolds before the universe. Callie joins the show to discuss her weight loss journey, which began when she weighed 377 pounds, folks. She also talks about transitioning to ultras, running Moab, connecting with her own heritage, Strava art, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the inspirational Callie Vinson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Callie Vinson, hot off of finishing the Moab 240. What? Callie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks. I'm awesome. And it's incredible to be here.
Oh man, I've been wanting to talk to you for such a long time. I've been following you on Instagram forever. And lo and behold, here we are. I finally get my chance to talk to you. I'm so excited.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
So how you feeling? I mean, the race, you finished it in 109 hours. Woo-wee.
I know. I feel good. I mean, training, well, I wouldn't call it training, but I'm back to running, back to hiking, back to business. It's kind of weird when you have nothing on your race radar after you've just finished something big and life-changing, and now it's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So yeah, I'm quickly looking for a next challenge.
So you didn't like do the thing like 24 hours after you finished the race of going on ultra sign up and signing for something else?
Mm-mm.
Good for you. You show restraint.
From the start of the race to the finish to the car ride home, I was cussing myself for ever thinking of a 200 miler. And then, you get home and you have a couple nights sleeps and you eat your foods that you like. And now I'm kind of in that camp of like, well, maybe I could do it again.
Maybe I could do it again. So I just want to run down some stats from this race that you shared on your social media profile. All right. Like I said, 109 hours to complete it. Holy moly, holy moly. All right. 8 hours of sleep total, over 240 miles. Wow. All right. 29,000 feet of elevation gain, 10 cups of coffee, 20,000 calories burned, 9,000 calories consumed. Good for you. 18 aid stations. You saw your crew 6 times. I love that. I love that stat. That's so good. Like it really puts in perspective. Like I hardly saw them at all.
The longest stretch was 50 something miles where I saw no crew, no pacers.
I do want to talk to you about that. And then the highest temp 90 degrees, the low 39 degrees, whoosh, and then hallucinations, which I can't wait to hear about. So let's talk about that. So, we're going to talk about your overall story and your journey as a runner, and which is so incredible and so inspiring for so many people, and me included. I just love seeing what you share, and the kind of the vulnerability that you put out there, which says a lot about a person. It's not an easy thing to do. And so I definitely applaud you for that. And I'm sure you get that all the time, but it has to be said. It's just incredible. But let's talk about Moab first. And what was the decision point for you to enter this race? I know that you signed up for a couple other of, beyond 100 milers, and then you had a DNF at Cocodona earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do want to talk to you about, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk with Moab. Why Moab?
Well, it's funny. In the beginning of my ultra career, I guess you could call it, I only thought that there were 100 milers. Like I thought that's how far they went. And then it was probably once I, started being more connected to the running community through Instagram that I saw pictures of this race called the Tahoe 200. And I was just mesmerized by this idea of doing 200 miles over this beautiful scenery and getting to spend more time than I would, you know, a 100-miler, getting to like savor it and see all these places and see all these views and sleep, which I never did in a 100-miler. So I was actually signed up for the Tahoe 200 first, and that was after I volunteered in 2019. I signed up for Tahoe 200 in 2020, and it was canceled because of COVID. And then I signed up for it again in 2021. It was canceled because of fires. So I gave up on Tahoe, and I was like, you know what, forget it. I want to do Moab because that was going to be the next on my list. Just knowing the kind of terrain that it's in, and it just like the Southwest was just so beautiful to me. And knowing that Bigfoot was so mountainous and there was a lot more climbing to it, that was just like, man, that's not really my cup of tea. But Moab, I mean, I had to try it. I had to get into it. And so that I signed up for that shortly after the Tahoe 200 of 2021 was canceled. I got in, and it was kind of on my back burner, like maybe I'm going to do it, maybe not, because I knew that Cocodona was coming up, and I knew that was going to be a big race for me, but I kept Moab on my radar, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. So, so what was your training load like going into Moab? Do you feel like you were prepared for it leading into it?
I feel like I was prepared. It's crazy. You would think that, you know, my weekly mileage was like around 100 miles a week, or 110, 90. I average probably about 50 to 70 miles a week. Weekdays, specifically Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I would run maybe an hour or two. And that was like a run walk combo, and then take a rest day on Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sundays were always my long run days or long effort days. And that's when I would get between 5 to 8 hours in each day. And it was really that back to back to back long run training of just like being tired on Saturday and even more tired on Sunday, getting used to that, and also getting used to the things that I would be eating for the race and whatnot. The one thing that I was very concerned with, and I was concerned with it going into Cocodona, was sleeping during the race, because I'm not a very good nap taker. Whenever I take a nap, it's 4 hours long, which is probably not beneficial in a 200-miler, maybe. But I was afraid that I wasn't gonna be able to fall asleep right away, and I'd sleep for too long. But luckily, it turned out just fine during Moab, and I was able to get my naps in and get right back up and moving.
So, so how did the race progress for you? Did you hit any snags where you thought, I don't know about this, I don't think I can make it? Any injuries you had to deal with at all?
No, I was actually very surprised. I mean, that was probably the number one concern in training, was, you know, of course, getting an injury, because that's going to hinder your race or keep you out of the race. But during the race, nothing flared up, nothing happened. I was so thankful about that. The major hiccup that actually almost took me out of the race at mile 70 was my stomach. And it was the same thing that happened during Cocodona. I just wasn't able to get anything in. Nothing was able to stay in. And the first day of Moab, I mean, I could barely eat a tortilla without having to get rid of it within like an hour. And I knew that if it was going to continue to be like that during Moab, it was going to be a huge challenge, just knowing you're already going to be dealing with sleep deprivation and just tiredness and achiness, but having no fuel in my body was concerning. But luckily it didn't take me out at mile 70, and I just kept going.
So did something just kind of click inside your body where you were able to then take in calories, or did you have to, like, some people need to vomit to kind of reset the system?
No, it was awful the entire time.
It was awful the entire time.
Yeah, it was just something that I just kind of dealt with for the rest of the race. At mile 70, I got to my crew, and Scott, I told him, I'm dropping. This is it. The same thing that happened in Cocodona is happening now. And it's something that I'm actually working with doctors with to try and figure out what's going on, because I'm just not able to keep in nutrition during these long endurance races. And he was like, just take a nap, like we'll refuel your pack and get you ready for the next section. He was going through the details. I was like, I'm done. I'm telling you, I'm done. But I went down, took a 2-hour nap, woke up, and I was going to tell him I'm done. And he was like asking me questions, filling my pack, getting me ready for the next section. And I was like, I'm done still. And he said, well, why don't you just go up this road 2 miles, 3 miles? If it's still just not working for you, you can come back and drop. And so I did the 2-3 miles, and I get there and I decided to keep going. So I kept going. No, because that was a big challenge, not only to like dig yourself out of this hole that you've dug, saying you're done, you're quit, you've already planned your like drive home, and to turn that around to I'm actually going to keep going for 130 something, a lot more miles. And that was, I don't know, it took a lot out of me to keep going.
That's a sign of a really good crew when someone can convince you to get out of that aid station and just keep going just go one more.
Exactly.
And had they not, like, if you get someone who doesn't know what they're doing, or they are just so maybe just anxious for their runner, maybe they're not experienced at seeing what happens in these sorts of events, that they can give into that fear of that, oh my gosh, something really bad could happen here, I need to pull them back. In some cases, that's absolutely the right thing to do. But luckily he was able to assess your situation, and push you back out there again. Had he not done that, we probably wouldn't be talking right now about this.
I know. That was something I was actually thinking about, because I had another friend ask if I wanted to do a podcast, and he asked before the race, and I was thinking at some points during the race, I was like, shit, I already committed to this, like I have to keep going.
So that's really what kept you going, because you had a commitment to a podcast. I see how. Yeah.
Exactly.
So then when you reached the 100-mile mark of that race, and your furthest distance at that point was a hundo, you've done a couple. What was that like for you, mentally speaking?
I think mentally, it's just because from then on, it's all new territory. Like it's all unknown beyond this point. So when you get to that mark of 100 miles, it's like, I'm just going to take what I know from doing a 100-miler and take it with me. Because doing a 100-miler, very similar to a 200, is you're troubleshooting the whole way. Like little things are going to happen. You got to fix it right at the beginning, whether it's something with your feet or your hydration, nutrition, clothes you're wearing. That was also a concern of mine, just making sure I would have the right clothes for each section, because you're just going through such big changes. But I just told myself, like, you've done a 100-miler before, how to troubleshoot through that. You can do it for another. And just think of it, I do this to myself, or I tell myself this all the time when I go out for a training run, is just think of it as an adventure, like a really long adventure. You're going to be out there. It's going to take a lot of time. You're going to go through a lot of shit along the way, but you're going to be done, and you're going to come back home, and it'll be great. So I'm telling myself, like, you're just going to continue on for this adventure and just enjoy it.
Did you learn anything about yourself during this race?
I think I learned that I can deal with stomach pain for a really long time. But I don't know, other than from that, I learned that crew is actually a game changer, because I've never done a race with crew or pacers before. And I realized that can really be a huge difference in a race, whether it being just someone to help you, like make sure your brain is okay in this section where you haven't slept for 3 days, or to make sure you have everything in your pack before you're going to go and do this very technical long section. They were really key in helping me continue, because they gave me something to look forward to too. And that was really big for, the mental part of the game.
Have you ever trained through sleep deprivation before?
I've done a couple long overnighters, like a 50-miler overnight, or just going out for a night run, which I don't like running at night. If I have it my way, all my runs would be in the morning and end at like 2 p.m. and we'd be done. But
sounds great.
Yeah. The idea of starting a run like in the afternoon or the evening sounds awful. Like if you tell me I had to go out for an hour run right now, that'd be awful. So a little bit of sleep deprivation training, but nothing like this at all.
Yeah. So I bet the sleep deprivation was what kind of attributed to your hallucinations. Can you talk about that a little bit? What was that experience like for you? And had you hallucinated before?
No, never during a 100-miler. And that was interesting, definitely because of sleep deprivation, and also probably because I had nothing in my stomach. I mean, I'd be lucky if I had just like 2 bites of my stomach in there. Luckily I did drink a lot of scratch, so that helped too, and Tailwind, which was at the event. But yeah, hallucination wise, I mean, a lot of it was just because your mind is so tired. It's so tired. It can't make out the object correctly that you're seeing. So what would happen is your brain is just making out the first thing that it sees. And so, I mean, I saw the abominable snowman out there. I still have to go Google this, but I'm pretty sure there's a big ship, or a spaceship in the middle of this very flat section before you get to the LaSalle Mountains. I swear to God, it was lit up. There were like little portholes in there. I got to go Google that later and make sure I'm either crazy or not crazy.
You're like a conspiracy theorist dream. Like you saw the abominable snowman and a UFO all in the same night. What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
I think someone's watching too many X-Files episodes that I think. So what do you tell your brain when you see these anomalies out there?
I think I just kind of have fun with it. Like I tell my brain, like, yeah, that's what you see. That's definitely out there right now. Like, yeah, that creepy demon that was in that tree, he's there. I just kind of like go with it, because at that point you're just so tired and so weak that you're like, if something happens, just take me. I don't care. Take me out of this. But I mean, I just kind of had fun with it.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And congratulations again on getting that finish. Would you do it again?
I'm like almost over the fence, because it's been 2 weeks exactly since I finished.
Yeah.
Like before I would have been like, hell fucking no, there's no way I'm ever doing this again. But now I'm like, we'll see.
Okay. So stepping back, way back a bit here, that you started your ultra, let's call it your ultra career back in 2017, I believe. Mm-hmm. What's part of your story is that you at one point in your life, you weighed like 377 pounds. Mm-hmm. And now today, how much do you weigh?
170.
Holy moly, holy moly, holy moly. So you've lost over 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. That is, I know it's not polite to ask a person this question, but I figured
I'm such an open book.
Yeah. So that's okay. So let's dive deep into this. This just your story. Kind of tell us the beginning of it, and let's work our way all the way up to 2017. So let's hear it. What happened?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Orlando. I lived there for 18 years. I played a lot of sports as a kid. I was either always in soccer or basketball, swimming, you name it. I mean, I mostly gravitated towards soccer. That was probably my sport of choice. So I was always pretty active as a kid. And when I got to high school, I picked up rowing because I wanted to try something new. And also I hated running. And with rowing, you're in a boat, so you don't have to run and chase a ball.
It's ball sports. Absolutely. Yes. And it's a great full body workout.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I was so fit those 4 years of high school when I was a rower. And I actually almost went to college for it too, going to Berkeley in California, but I took a hard right turn and went to art school. And
say what now? What? I mean, Berkeley's got a great rowing program, but you're like, nope. Art school, like, what's up?
Art school. And my mom was so supportive. She was like, sure, that's what you want to do. Good. So went to art school in Savannah, Georgia. I love that town so much. And I just completely fell off. Like I just dove into art and everything that comes with being an art student, and totally unhealthy habits, eating, drinking, whatever. Nothing active. I didn't play any sports there. Though they didn't have too many sports teams in art school, but they had a few. They had a great.
Okay, yeah, I can't imagine that they'd have a huge major sports program in an art school.
No, I mean they have some great teams. They've got a great soccer team because we actually had a lot of international students, so all of our soccer players were from Europe. And then they had an equestrian team. But anyway, I gained a ton of weight there and just completely lost all of my healthy lifestyle, daily
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So what kind of art student were you? Would you call yourself graphic design, paint? What medium were you in?
Advertising. So
Okay, great.
I'm a copywriter now.
Uh-huh.
So I work for ad agencies, and my ad agency is still in Chicago, but I'm in Scottsdale.
Okay. So, so I actually went to school studying for advertising too.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's, you can get lost in yourself for long periods of time that just go, 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 go. You sit, you eat, you drink at your desk, whatever, and time just flies by. Before you know it, there's just like, you've got the motivation of a snail, Was that true for you?
yeah. Oh, 100%. I was just so caught up in wanting to climb the advertising ladder that I was just like working myself to death in there. I would work, 60, 80-hour weeks, eating the catered food that was there, never leaving my desk. And just kind of like went down this swirl of just working, and not really enjoying life outside of that skyscraper.
Yeah, it becomes its own addiction
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
Yeah.
To be successful at something, and geez, to make a run of it in Chicago, that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So you have got to hone your craft and get a great portfolio going, right?
100%. Yeah. And I was lucky to be able to work for some great ad agencies there. I worked at Leo Burnett, Ogilvy, is where I got my internship. And then a couple small shops, and now I work for Mosaic. I'm working on the Starbucks brand. So
fantastic, good for you.
For big brands, but now I have much more of a work-life balance, I guess. But back then there was no balance.
Okay, so I would say in Chicago is where you probably kind of hit your peak in terms of your weight gain. So what was that shift like for you to make that decision to turn away from that?
Yeah, so I mean, going from Savannah to the big city of Chicago, I moved there with 2 suitcases and big dreams. Like I just wanted to conquer so much, and whether it was, with advertising or just becoming this person that I always saw myself being, like live in the big city. And I just wanted to be her so bad.
That is so cool. I'm just picturing you kind of getting off a Greyhound bus with 2 suitcases in the Windy City. Like, I'm going to make it. Watch me. And exactly. I mean, you did.
Just a different way.
Yeah, I got a really cute visual in my head right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was 100% me. Like I was just crashed on my friend's couch until I made enough money to get my own place, and I didn't care. Like I just wanted to go there and start this dream, and there was no stopping me.
Good for you. So there you are, living the dream.
Yeah.
So I interrupted you. I'm sorry. So please continue.
No worries. So yeah, I get there and I have all these big goals, big dreams. And it was the day, and I tell the story to friends, that there was one day where my friend asked to go to brunch, and of course I Googled where it is because I wanted to look at the menu, and they said we're going to walk there, and I saw that it was a mile away from me, and I just thought there's absolutely no way that I can walk a mile to go to brunch. And that was the big red flag that made the switch. Ultimately, it was if I can't walk a mile to go to brunch, then I actually have all these limitations that I've put on myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to enter Chicago with all these limitations because I wanted to be free. I wanted to go after all these goals and chase them. And I just kind of quickly realized that wasn't going to be a possibility, living the lifestyle that I was.
So, what year was this about?
Ooh, that was probably 2012, 2013, I want to say.
All right.
Yeah, because I moved there 2011. Yeah. And then I left 2021. So I was there for 10 years. So yeah. And I mean, that was the point where I just knew I had to change. I mean, up until then, my doctors have been telling me you've got to make a change or you're going to be, staring at an early death, just at the rate that I was gaining weight and the lifestyle that I was living to. So that was
were you heeding their advice?
I didn't really take it. In the doctor's office, you're like, yeah, you're right. Yes.
I just want to leave.
And then you're in the Uber going home and you're like, I'm getting delivery. So that was me. So yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with that lifestyle. Trust me.
Nope. It's okay. It's all right, but not for you. So
that was my addiction. So I had to stop it.
What was your go-to?
Oh, anything. I mean, I was raised on Southern food, which everything is creamed, fried, and sugared. So if that has anything to do with the recipe, I was all for it.
Okay, gotcha. Which is all right. So so you're like, all right, I cannot continue on this way. So where was that kind of switch for you? What was that like?
It was difficult. It was very difficult because I mean, up until then, I think a time or two, like I would try to do whatever trending diet was going around and I would like lose a little bit, but then completely fall off and then, be in an even worse place than when I started before, which was just yo-yoing out of control. But I knew that like, nope, this is it. This is the time to make it a habit and this is going to be your lifestyle. So, I mean, I just started with something small. Like I just wanted to have a small, like attainable goal, make it a habit over 2 to 3 weeks, and then move on to the next thing. So my first little change that I did was making my lunch every day. And I was the girl who I would bring in like all of the ingredients possible to make this huge salad and put it in the work fridge. And I took up probably like a quarter of that fridge. But everyone was like super like, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Like very supportive of this, thing that I wanted to do. And I would make all these big salads for myself and that would be my lunch. And also parallel pathing with this little goal is me doing all this little research on my own too, because I wanted to start learning like the value of food. Before it was just seen as this thing that just made me happy. And I was starting to realize like, oh, like food almost has like this little superpower. Like if you start to think about what you're putting in your body and what it can do for you. So I started doing a lot of research on my own and starting to incorporate those, little like learning nuggets into my lunches that I would make. And then once I, felt good about my lunches being made, I started making my own dinners and then started making my own breakfast and snacks. And once I felt good about like all my food choices, that's when I got a gym membership for the first time in forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't start running right away. I actually started, going on the elliptical or going on the Stairmaster. I never did the weights because I was very intimidated by going to the free weights where all the dudes were, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So I would just go to my elliptical in the corner, and that was it. It wasn't probably for like, I don't know, 4 to 6 months maybe that I started running, but I would only run very, very early in the morning or late at night during the dark when no one would be outside or could see me. So I would
Was
run
that really
around the
part of your
block.
thought process that you really just kind of didn't want to be seen?
I didn't want people to see me running or see me try to run because I was so embarrassed of what I would look like. So I would run at very odd hours just to avoid, the daylight or people seeing me because they were out. But yeah, I would do that, just running around the block, trying to run around the block without stopping. That was my first goal. And then I would run around the block without stopping. And then I kind of just kept putting on way too many miles, way too quickly. And I got a stress fracture in my knee, actually.
Yeah.
I let that heal. It was very painful. I mean, I've had stress fractures before in my foot more recently, but like stress fracture in my knee, I couldn't even walk for like probably a month. I had to be on crutches, but I eventually got over the injury, got back to running, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Talk about a huge shift from where you started, where I want to be invisible when I run, to where you are today, where, hey, this is who I am. This is my skin. Take a look. This is what my body is now. And how empowered you are to showcase this is my body. And, this is what an ultra runner looks like. Me. This is me. And there are various stages of it, of what you look like. There's no one way. There are many, 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 many ways. Every shape and size and color you can think of, so I think that's one of the reasons why I really love your story so much, especially hearing it now, just to see the transformation you've gone through to where you are today. So you are starting to run. At what point do you see some progress in your weight loss and in terms and your confidence and how you're feeling?
Oh my gosh, talk about addiction. So like, I think in that process, my addiction to food switched to my addiction or obsession maybe to like tracking food. And I was a huge user of MyFitnessPal, which is an app that would track everything that you ate, and I would weigh everything out, and I was very militant about it. Still to this day I can be, but I try and like stop that and try and keep more of a balance these days. But I was just so obsessed with seeing the numbers of how much food I had eaten a day. And then the scale the next day, I would weigh myself probably every day. And that became kind of a problem, but I eventually was able to stop it and see what was happening and stop that from snowballing out of control. When it actually did get out of control. And then I was like, man, I need to stop this. But it was probably like I want to say probably longer than that. It was probably like 6 months. I lost maybe 50 or so pounds. And then within a year, I lost 100. And then it was maybe the next year, it was 200. So I started the weight loss journey around 2013, 14. And then ran the marathon 2016, which was right about the time that I lost 200.
What? I mean, you're losing like what, 6 pounds a month, that rate. Wow, that's dedication. What was that like for you when you went to like, you know what, Mama's got to buy some new clothes?
It was a good feeling, I'm not gonna lie. I love shopping for smaller sizes. And that was another, like, I guess, fun thing to track versus like the number on the scale, seeing how clothes would fit me. And I quickly started to realize that, oh, this is going to be something that keeps going and keeps happening. Yeah. So I started taking pictures along the way of clothes that would fit me. And then a month later, it fit like a little looser, or my favorite running shirt that I had on last month, 2 months from now, I couldn't even wear it. So that was a fun part of the journey, just being able to shop smaller sizes and not having to go to a plus size store, which I'm so glad that they exist, because I completely understand what that's like when you can't shop at a normal store because they don't have your size. But the moment that I got to go to a regular store, wonderful. Wow. But it was crazy.
So when did you transition over to running, in running events where you go from being invisible to being, I'm running with thousands of people here in Chicago?
Yeah. So what was that? I can't remember when it was. One weekend, I decided I'm going to go out and run 13.1 miles, because I think that's a half marathon. And I just want to see if I can do it, because I'd worked up enough that was, within reach. And I went out and I ran those 13.1 miles. I couldn't tell you how long it took me, because I didn't have any kind of fitness tracker at the time. I think I only had my phone and I was using the Nike Plus app. But I get home and I ate the biggest stack of pancakes you could ever imagine. And I was so happy that I did it. And then it was pretty shortly after that, so the Red Eye is a newspaper in Chicago, and it was maybe like the weekend before the Chicago Marathon. And I saw the front cover was dedicated to the Chicago Marathon and like all the details inside and what to look forward to. And I was standing on the Blue Line platform, getting on the train. And I just thought to myself, like, there's no fucking way I could ever run a marathon. But then that instantly became, I have to try and run a marathon. Like instantly I was like, if that's something that I feel is a challenge and I feel like might be impossible, I have to try and do it. And so 2016, beginning of the year, I started doing my research, like how do I get into the Chicago Marathon? And I found this running team. They're associated with Paw Chicago, which is a no-kill animal shelter in Chicago. They do a charity group for the Chicago Marathon. So I joined them, fundraised for them, and I got my bib into my first race in 2016.
How'd that go for you?
It was great. My mom came out for it. She had never, of course, been to a race before, so she didn't know how it works. So I was like, I don't know how long it's going to take me, but these are the points to be at. And luckily with Chicago, like if this was Chicago, like it goes like this, and this is like the downtown area. So she just had to stay in this little area and just go across some streets. So it was great for her to see it, see her daughter do this crazy thing. The only thing that happened during that race is I got like a side stitch around like mile 13 and my side just started cramping. Mm-hmm. But It was fine. I couldn't even tell you what my finishing time was because I don't remember these things.
So what was that finish like? Was it like, that was great, never fucking again? Or were you like, all right, I'm on a drug, let's go. I'm going to sign up for hundreds.
It was the latter. I was like, that was awesome. I want to do that again. I remember standing in the corral, like just looking at my bib on my pants. And I was like, am I even wearing this right? Is this how you guys do this? I mean, it's not like it's a small race, there's 40,000 people there, but it was incredible from start to finish. I mean, that race, just like Boston, just like New York, is just electric the entire course because there are so many spectators. So that set a really high bar as far as like what I expect from a race. And then you go to an ultra and there's like 2 people, maybe.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So what was that shift like, going from doing roads to running to ultras? What, like, did you like discover trails at some point during this process, or what was that? What happened there?
So I never had a car in Chicago because you don't need one. I got rid of it before I moved to Chicago. So I never really went to trails, even when I started running and after the marathon. I just kind of stuck around the city because that's what I liked. And I'm a very clumsy person, so I would trip on sidewalk all the time.
It's great. So trails makes great sense.
I'm a very slow trail runner just for that reason.
Same. Guilty. Yeah.
There's a rock, my feet will find it.
I have made an art of how to fall correctly.
Please.
I've learned to fall like a cat. I'm not kidding.
Idea.
Yeah.
I need to learn this because like, what was it? 3 weeks before Moab, I took a hard fall on my knee and I was like, that's it, we're out.
Yep.
But it ended up being fine.
Okay, so you don't have a car in Chicago.
So I didn't really get to explore trails very much. I did a lot of road running, tons of road running. Actually, my first 50 miler was a road race in Chicago. It's called the Chicago 50-50. And it wasn't until after that race that I discovered trails. And the closest trail was probably like a 30-minute drive. I would go to, God, I can't even remember the name of it now. It starts with a G. Anyway. I would rent a car and go out there and just explore it because I saw pictures that it's very flat, it's very smooth, it's almost like a dirt road, not a lot of climbing, like not 20 feet of climbing on it probably. And so that was what I would go and venture to and kind of get a feel for trails, or what I thought were trails. And yeah, I only got to do that maybe like once a month just because I didn't have a car in Chicago. So it wasn't actually until I moved to Arizona that I felt like I really became a trail runner, which was a year and a half ago.
Wow.
So I've been running roads and I'm still very, 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 very clumsy and not a great trail runner. I'm probably the worst trail runner out there. But
you just finished Moab, so that's bullshit.
I'm a great hiker.
So why ultras? Like, why did you decide to run ultras of all things?
Oh my goodness. So it was after the 50, I was like, I think I was waiting for a doctor, and I was in that waiting room and there were magazines kind of spread out and they had a runner's world on the table. And I saw, a bunch of, stories about marathons and 5Ks and halves, but then I saw this like little section where they were talking about the Western States 100, and I just was completely blown away by that concept. Yeah. And I think I took out my phone and started looking up what is the Western States 100 and how it goes like over this course. It's crazy and by mountains, and just the idea of doing that kind of adventure outdoors. It immediately grabbed my attention. As a kid, I was always outside. I was always dirty. I was always playing, pretending to be an animal, running around. Just, you couldn't bring me back inside, even if you said it's air conditioned and there's like pizza in there. Mm-hmm. So the idea of doing something like this out like in the wilderness just immediately caught my attention. And just after the 50 miler, I saw how small and close the community was. And I loved that aspect about ultra running. Granted, my road racing experience was in Chicago, so everything's big, everything's commercialized, everything's just over the top, crowded. Some of them, most of them. But just this idea of like this small community that all knows each other and that's out there to like help each other, and just the pace you can go to also caught my attention because I'm not a very fast runner. So the idea of continuing this sport to get faster wasn't really appealing to me, but the idea of continuing it to go farther definitely intrigued me.
Well, so I mean, you are in Florida, it's flat. Go to Chicago, it's flat.
Oh, I would do a 20 miler and gain maybe like 10 feet.
And then you end up in Arizona, what, like a year and a half ago, you said?
Mhm.
Is that right? Why did you, because you could work from anywhere, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
So what was the decision to move to Arizona for? I think you're in Scottsdale, right?
Mm-hmm. Originally, I had an opportunity to move here through a friend, and I kind of just snagged it, just knowing that I wanted to go somewhere in around, more outdoor activity.
Mhm.
I did more research on Arizona, seeing what things are close: Flagstaff, Sedona, the Grand Canyon, New Mexico, California is right over there. Mexico is right down there. So just knowing that there's so much to explore in this area, I immediately grabbed the opportunity and moved here. I knew that my next step in life was going to be somewhere where there was going to be way more outdoors to explore, and just way more beauty and way more variety. Coming from Chicago, it's big buildings, skyscrapers, tons of people, and I was looking for somewhere that was less people and more outdoors. So
now you have trails are accessible. You go from the Windy City to one of the hottest places on earth during the summertime. I know it can be pretty intense, but other times of year, it's not. It's great, right?
Oh, it was beautiful today. I woke up and it was probably like 60 degrees outside. It got to a high of like 77. Beautiful.
Wow. So have you acclimated to Arizona life?
I think so. And that's probably from growing up in Florida. It's hot there constantly, and the humidity just makes it even worse. So moving here, where it's a dry heat, as we all know, it didn't really take too much to transition to. Granted, this summer we were gone in Colorado, and mostly Colorado this summer, but we came back in August and we're like, why is it still 100?
Sounds horrible. Sounds just terrible. Oh my gosh, your life sounds just so let's talk. I want to kind of get back to your weight loss journey, and when you started approaching the 200 mark of losing that much weight. What's that experience like?
I mean, I knew that the day would come soon, because back then I was obsessive about tracking my weight, to the point that I wouldn't even drink water in the morning until I weighed myself on the scale, just to make sure I was getting the accurate number and lowest number. So I knew the date was coming, and it was such an anticlimactic moment. Like, I remember waking up that morning, I was like, this might be the day. I feel light. And I go in there and I weigh myself, and sure enough, it's 177. And I did this kind of thing. And I looked around, and my boyfriend was already gone. Cloudy, my dog, was right there. And I was like, Cloudy, this thing just happened. And I took a picture, and I think I sent it to my mom. And she was like, oh my God, that's insane. And that was kind of it. But then it kind of stewed over the day and over the next day. And then I think I made up a post about it, and just to be like, look at this thing that happened. And I feel like I remember that being one of the first times that I posted something that was pretty big and very vulnerable to post too.
Yeah.
And just receiving the amount of support that I got from people, it just completely blew me away, because I didn't think that it was that big of a deal. I knew it was a big a deal, but I didn't realize that it was, it's not something that happens to everyone. So that kind of opened my eyes, because I just wasn't thinking that way, I guess.
God, I have so many more questions here. So I want to ask you about the fear of failure. Did that ever enter the equation in your head of trying to reach these, not easily obtainable goals that you set for yourself? And what was it like? If so, then what was it like to sort of combat those, to kind of shout those down?
I think I'm just gravitated towards challenges with that possibility of failure. I don't like things that are too easy. I don't like it if I don't really have to work hard for it. I think I get more satisfaction. I'm sure, it's like this for most people. I feel like I've really, truly earned this thing if there was a really good chance that I couldn't have.
Yeah.
And that is my little carrot that I love to dangle in front of myself to go after. Because then when you do it and you did it, it's like, oh my God, like I feel like I just unlocked something in myself that I didn't realize was there. And then you just kind of keep doing these things and you keep discovering more about yourself, whether it be this new like superpower that you have or this new limitation that you have. And I kind of see those challenges with failure as new ways to discover myself.
Wow, that's really powerful. That's really powerful. Does your journey, does that help you? Does it enter sort of your, I guess your how you approach ultras and finishing them, and when you got that doubt of like, I don't know, this is really fucking hard, I don't know if I can finish this, but you're like, fuck you, Callie, you've lost like 100 or 200 pounds here, you can do this, girl, let's get up, let's go.
I mean, I'm telling myself all kinds of shit during those phases. But I do know that I will kind of like recircle those little achievements as just affirmations that you have what it takes. I tell myself this a lot. You have what it takes to get it done. It might take everything you've got, but you do have what it takes.
Yeah.
And you have to believe yourself.
Yeah. What keeps you going these days?
Like in races like that?
Well, I guess just to like for every day, what keeps you going? I mean, is it that do people reach out to you and say, Callie, this was my situation, but I came across you and you've inspired me to get off the damn couch and, and walk a 5K. Are you hearing from folks like that?
That happens like lately, probably the last couple months, it's been happening almost daily, I would say, whether it's someone commenting something or someone sending me a message. And it is seeing those little messages that is partly why I keep going, because if what I do can inspire just one more person or another person who doesn't believe in themselves right now, but something could definitely change to, help them reach whatever goal they have or just help them see themselves differently, then I'm going to keep doing it. And I want to keep helping people who might be in a situation that I was in back in 2013.
Yeah.
Because I know people are out there. I was out there, and I know how intimidating that was to be in that situation, feeling like you've got nothing going for you, feeling like you don't really have any skills, feeling like, you're just not doing anything. You're wasting life, basically. And I want to be able that inspiration for someone who might be thinking those thoughts and telling them like, you can completely change. You're on this floating rock. Nothing matters. Just do whatever makes you happy and don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I don't know if you see yourself this way, but I definitely see you as a champion. And no, I really do. Was there a champion in your life when you were going through this journey? Someone you looked up to, say they did it, whatever it was.
Right. 100%. I would say it's probably my mom. She basically raised me as a kid. My dad, he was there, but he's a functioning alcoholic. So he's always kind of in his own world. And my mom, I mean, she went through probably one of the roughest childhoods I could possibly know. And I can give you like a quick little story. When she was a kid, she was 12 years old. She walked into the kitchen and she saw her stepdad shoot her own mother in the head and kill her.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then went into the backyard and killed himself.
Oh my God.
It was at that point that she had to help raise her two siblings in like a family friend's house, who I always grew up thinking it was my grandpa. Turns out it's not. And then I found out later, probably when I'm 18, she tells me like that person was actually sexually assaulting her. And she had to stay in that house because that was how she could get education and help her two siblings and get them out of there eventually. So she endured that and got out and became the woman that she is now. And then another thing happened. So this poor mother, I had a sister, and 2020, she passed away. We're still trying to figure out what that was. It wasn't COVID, but we're not sure what it was. And my sister has 3 kids, and my mom immediately drove to those kids, picked them up, and she's now taking care of them in Atlanta. And one of them is autistic. The girl who also is going through a lot of problems, she was also sexually assaulted by her own father when she was 9 years old. So my mom is like helping her get through therapy and all this stuff. So whenever I think of like what I'm going through, I'm like, my mom is like kicking ass right now. Like she is my hero. She is my rock. And she's kind of the one that helped me or supported me through all these crazy endeavors that I've had.
Wow, your mom has an indomitable spirit. Holy moly. Well, first, I'm so sorry to hear about your sister. And your mom is a fucking survivor. Wow.
It's insane. Like I'm in the process of writing a book, and I feel like her story is like half of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's been my inspiration for all the crazy shit that I do. Like,
right.
She's strong. You can be strong in this moment.
Right. So does she kind of come into your mind when you hit a low point of like, I don't know if I can do this?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. What do you tell
And
yourself?
there's been a few times where I've actually written on my hand for mom in the race, because I knew the race was going to be difficult, or I knew that there was, again, a possibility of failure. And that would be my thing to look back at and think like, this is for her. This is for her and for my niece who's went through that thing, to show them that we are strong and we can get through this.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, to take something that's so tragic, and be able to flip it around to gain strength from it. And there, everybody has something in their story that they could turn to. And some of us, we crumble when we think about these things. Other of us were able to harness them like you have. My dad, when he was fighting cancer and lost that battle, but when he was fighting it, I used to wear a bracelet for him whenever I ran, when I competed. And so whenever I felt like shit and felt like I don't know if I can do this, I was kind of look at it, hold on to it and keep going. But when you look at that as you're finishing what you set out to do, the emotional roller coaster you go on, you just like, for me, like I cannot stop crying when I finish like a marathon or an ultra, because there was so much uncertainty and work that went into that event.
Yeah. And then you finally get like steps within the finish line and it's there. It's you did it.
Yeah.
I know that like I cried way more during Moab than I did at the finish line.
Yeah.
Because I think you're just still like going through those uncertain moments. And then you have this moment where you're like, wait, no, I can do that. Like, this is obtainable. I can do this. And then that's when I start crying.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time I got to the finish line, I was all out of energy, all out of tears. More so in shock.
Yeah. I really thank you for sharing that part of your story with all of us. That cannot be easy to do, but I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that. Wow. So I kind of want to deviate over to something else that was also very important to you and a lot of us, which is, I know you're, I don't know, I have to look back at it, but I think you're part Choctaw Indian.
Yes.
Is that right? And talk about how that part of your heritage has kind of how it's influencing your life now, what you're doing to raise awareness, and how moving to Arizona is part of that story.
Yeah, it's interesting because growing up, it was never really a part of our lives. Like it was nothing that we like celebrated, because I didn't grow up on a reservation. So it wasn't really something that was really rooted in our everyday lives. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Arizona that I just felt more of this connection back to those roots. And I think it's because it's just so alive here. It wasn't very alive in Florida, or at least Orlando. And just realizing like, wait, that is a part of you. Like that's part of your heritage. Like you should learn more about this and you should connect more to it. And that's when I actually discovered Native Women Running on Instagram. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. So it was such a, I don't know if it was a turning point, but it was just like a monumental moment for myself to discover this community while I'm kind of like transitioning into this very like much outdoorsy trail runner versus the big city runner. It just kind of all came together where I just felt like I'm finally being more connected to this part of me. And so I've I've talked to Verna before, and I've, kind of helped do what I can on my platform just to raise awareness for that community. Because I think like if there's anything that I can do to help, it's just to raise awareness, just to raise the voice of these people and these women who are out there running and celebrating their heritage. And I just, I'm still trying to continue to learn more about it and to connect myself more into that community as much as I can.
Yeah, I follow them on Instagram, and I'm always inspired and impressed with what I'm seeing there and what they've set out to do, and all the different challenges that they are embarking on, and then completing those too. It's such a wonderful thing to see. Do you find yourself thinking about your heritage when you're out running those trails in Arizona?
I do, and it's funny, like, because I wasn't really aware of that culture when I was growing up. I never knew about this, but it's very common for Native runners to run east towards the sun for sunrise, to greet the sun, to have a moment of prayer, and to just like feel this like gratitude for the day and for the people, and just it's just this like wonderful thing that I didn't realize so many people did. And I've always been a morning runner, and I always gravitate towards the time of like sunrise in the morning, and then just finding out about that and then finding out that I do this, I'm like, how does this happen? But it's been this very interesting kind of discovery that I've done here. But yeah.
That is so very cool. That is, and that you're honoring, the past, which we have to carry those things forward, otherwise they become lost to time.
Right.
And so I hope that you just continue doing that. Something else I wanted to ask you about, which I'm intrigued. If you don't want to talk about it, it's totally fine. But I noticed you've got 2 screaming awesome tattoos on your arms.
I do.
I'd like to know more about those.
You can see it. This is a shark, and then I've got the Choctaw lady over here. The shark was my first one, and I got that shortly after I moved here. So growing up in Florida, you're right by the beach. I never, as a kid, ever got into the water because I was terrified of just being attacked by a shark, or that there are sharks out there. So I never went in the water. The closest I would get would be like to my ankles, maybe my knees, but then I'd quickly get back out. So I got the shark as a reminder to just go after big, scary things. Like if it scares you, go after it and be a shark, be the shark in the water going after stuff.
So do people they mistake it and think that you're some sort of shark enthusiast?
I hope so. No, I don't think so. Maybe.
I love Sharknado. I'm just a big fan. So I got tattooed on my arm.
I should put like a little tornado in there somewhere.
Maybe.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah, and then I got this one to honor my Choctaw heritage, and I just like skulls, so I got this one.
Pretty
and
badass.
I got this from the same artist, and I'm due for my third.
There in Arizona.
Fantastic. Yeah, he's local, and he's great. I mean, I love his style, and he's wonderful to talk to. So it's always a great experience.
I got 2 more things I want to ask you about. One of them is you kind of became known for your Strava art. And so I want to ask, can you tell folks what Strava art is? And then if you've got a personal favorite.
Yeah. So Strava art is where you use your GPS data to create lines or shapes, depending on what street you go down or whatever. And so to create Strava art, you have to think of okay, where's the beginning point of the line and where's the end line? And then I have to create it by running that route to make it a picture. And I did that a lot in 2020 because there were no races going on. And so I'm naturally a creative person. So I was trying to find any reason to go run or to make a run purposeful. And that was one of the things I did, was making Strava art. I just did some other stuff too, like mural hunting, but the Strava art was a lot of fun because I got to think of what I wanted it to be and then map it out using, what did I use? Oh, I used Photoshop. So it was a process where you take a screenshot of the map, put it into Photoshop, draw your thing, then map it out on Map My Run, and then load that to my phone and then track my phone while I'm doing this thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it took time because you would want to get it, because I think the first time I did it, my route started to become over 100 miles. I was like, whoa, settle down. So I had to go back and like redraw it in a smaller screenshot. But I think my favorite one that I did, there's two. I did one that spelled out "This moment matters." And it was during the pandemic when everything felt paused and the world was upside down and it just seemed like nothing mattered. Like every day didn't matter. Like what I was doing didn't matter. So I was trying to remind myself, like every moment still matters. Like this moment where you feel like everything's going wrong and every new day is a dumpster fire, like this moment still matters.
Yeah.
So make the most of it. And then I did a fun one, because everyone was working from home. We're all on Zoom or on Teams or whatever. I wrote one that said, "You're on mute, Karen," because if I have to hear that one more time, either you're on mute or can you see my screen? So
that's hilarious. I love it. And then you mentioned it earlier, but mural running, I've never heard of it before. What is that? And
it was just something I made up. So in Chicago, there's murals everywhere, and they're all beautiful too. And there are a couple mural artists that had tons of murals around Chicago. So I followed this one guy named JC Rivera. I don't even know. He probably has like 50 around Chicago, but I made it a thing to go and tag as many as possible. People will tag summits. I was tagging murals. So I would go to a mural, take a picture, and then go to the next one, tag a picture, and it became the like JC Rivera 50K, because it ended up being a little over 30 miles. But it was fun just to like track all these things and go hunt them down like a scavenger hunt.
You might be the coolest person I know.
Oh, please.
Callie Vinson, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your time. I cannot wait to see what you have going on next. I can't wait to meet you in person. I know it's going to happen sometime, but hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
Callie, thanks so much for your time again. You're great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Okay. And we are paused and we're good.
Awesome.
Oh man, that was so good. Callie, you're great. I know you're no stranger to these parts, and you totally delivered. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're gonna try and get this out as soon as possible. So if you could do me a favor, if you could just send me a quick note with every link you want us to share. And if it's a photo that's in landscape mode. So we can push that out on our social channels. And if okay with you, I would like to just maybe share a resource for domestic violence awareness, which is this month of October. So it'd be something I'd like to go in and highlight if that's all right.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, coolio. All right, we'll do that. All right. Well, I'm sure you got to go run early in the morning. So
I'm looking forward to daylight savings because that means my work hours will be 8 to 4, whereas now they're 7 to 3. But this this morning I had a little 6:30 a.m. meeting and I was like, who scheduled this?
An insane person did.
It was rough. It was so rough. But yeah, you get it done.
Yeah, you do. All right. Hey, thank you again so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You got it. All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.